Welcome to Millennium Daytime Bulletin. I'm Shweta Simar from New Delhi and you're watching Millennium News Channel 24. Today I'm bringing you the latest updates from around the world. Let's begin with today's top headlines. Anti-Trump protests in cities across US declare hands-off. United States cancel visa for South Sudanese over deportation dispute. Prime Minister Modi receives ceremonial welcome as he begins Sri Lanka visit. Thousands in Spain join nationwide march to protest against housing crisis. BJP MP backs Piyush Goyal take on Indian startups called Zepto CEO's reply. United Nations urges relief efforts in Myanmar as earthquake death toll rises. China is constructing world's first deep-sea station in SCS to extract 80 billion tons of worth of energy. Tech stock surges as commodities slide in choppy market session. MS Dhoni retirement speculation, Chennai Super Kings coach breaks silence. Pakistan Cricket Board breaks silence after Khushdil Shah attacked spectators during Pakistan vs New Zealand third ODI. Now let's look at the details. Crowds of protesters have amassed in cities across the United States to denounce Donald Trump in the largest nationwide show of opposition since the president took office in January. The hands-off protest planners aimed to hold rallies in the 1,200 locations, including all the 50 U.S. states. Thousands of people turned out in Boston, Chicago, Los Angeles, New York and Washington, D.C., among other cities on Saturday. Protesters cited grievances with the Trump's agenda ranging from the social to economical issues. Also coming days after Trump announcement that the United States would impose import tariff on most countries including the world, gatherings were also held outside the United States, including in the cities of London, Paris and Berlin. In Boston, some protesters said that they were motivated by the immigration raids on the US university students that have led to arrest and deportation proceedings. Law student Kathy Smith told BBC News that she was motivated by the Turkish international student Rumeysa Öztürk, whose arrest near the Boston area Tufts University by masked US agent was caught on camera last month. "You can stand up today or you can be taken later," she said, adding that "I am not usually a protest girly." Also, "Stop hurting people and he's an idiot," they chanted. "Hands off Canada, hands off Greenland and hands off Ukraine," referring Trump's changes to the US foreign policy. Trump has repeatedly expressed interest in the annexing of Canada and Greenland. He also got into a public dispute with the Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky and has struggled to negotiate a peace deal between Ukraine and Russia. In the Washington, D.C., thousands of protesters gathered to watch speeches by the Democratic lawmakers. Many remarks focused on the role played in the Trump administration by the wealthy donors, most notably Elon Musk, who has served as an advisor to the president and spearheaded an effort to dramatically cut spending and federal workforce. Also, Florida Congressman, that is Maxwell Frost, denounced the billionaire takeover of our government. Also, "When you steal from people, expect the people to rise up at the ballot box and in the streets," he shouted. The protest comes after a bruising week for the president and his allies. Republicans won a closely watched special Florida congressional election on Tuesday, but with slimmer margins than they had hoped. Also, Wisconsin voters elected a Democratic judge to serve on the state Supreme Court, roundly rejecting a Musk-backed Republican candidate by almost 10 percentage points. In both states, Democrats sought to tap into voters' anger towards the Trump administration policies and Elon Musk influence. Some polls shows that approval rating for the President Trump to be slipping slightly. One Reuters Ipsos poll released earlier this week found that his approval rating had dropped to 43%, its lowest point since Trump began his second term in January. When he was inaugurated on the 20th of January, his approval rating was 47%. The same poll found that 37% of Americans approve of his handling of the economy, while 30% approve of his strategy to address the cost of living in the United States. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has announced that the United States is immediately revoking visas issued to all South Sudanese passport holders due to the African nation refusing to accept its citizens and who have been removed from the United States. Also, Rubio in a statement on Saturday adding that the United States will also block any arriving citizens of the South Sudan, the world's newest country, at the US port of entry. Also, he blamed the failure of the South Sudan's transitional government to accept the return of the repatriated citizens in a timely manner. A cornerstone of the President Donald Trump's immigration policy is removing unlawful migrants from the United States with the promise of mass deportations. It is time for the transitional government of the South Sudan to stop taking advantage of the United States, said Marco Rubio in a statement. Also, every country must accept the return of its citizen in a timely manner when another country, including the United States, seek to remove them, he added. It comes as fear grow that South Sudan may again descend into a civil war. On 8th March, the United States also ordered all its non-emergency staff in the South Sudan to leave as regional fighting broke out, also threatening a fragile peace deal agreed in 2018. Also, South Sudanese in the United States were previously granted temporary protected status, that is TPS, which allows them to remain in the United States for a set period of time. TPS for South Sudanese in the United States had been due to expire by 3rd of May. South Sudan, the world's newest nation, gained independence in 2011 after ceding from Sudan. But just 2 years later, following a rift between the President Salva Kiir and the Vice President Riek Machar, the tensions erupted into a civil war in which more than 4 lakh people were killed. A 2018 power-sharing agreement between the two stopped the fighting, but key elements of the deal have not been implemented, including a new constitution, as the election and the reunification of the armed groups into the single army. Sporadic violence between the ethnic and the local groups have continued in the parts of the country. Since returning to office, Trump administration has clashed with the international governments over deportation of their nationals from the United States. In January, the Colombian President Gustavo Petro barred 2 U.S. military flights carrying deported immigrants and from landing in this South American country. Petro relented after Trump promised to place crippling tariffs and sanctions on Colombia. Prime Minister Narendra Modi was accorded a ceremonial welcome at the Colombo's Independence Square on the Friday as he began a 3-day visit to Sri Lanka aimed at deepening the regional and the development cooperation. Also, Sri Lankan President Anura Kumar Dissanayake greeted him at the venue, marking the start of a packed diplomatic schedule. Earlier in the day, Prime Minister Narendra Modi was welcomed at his hotel, where he was seen shaking hands with the members of the Indian diaspora and witnessing a puppet show performed in his honor. Also, the vibrant reception reflected the strong cultural and people-to-people ties between the two countries. Prime Minister Modi's arrival in Colombo came after his visit to Thailand, where he held a bilateral meeting with the Thai Prime Minister Shinawatra and attended BIMSTEC summit. On the sidelines, he engaged in further bilateral discussions, laying the groundwork for his leg of the regional outreach. Also, despite rainy weather, 6 senior Sri Lankan ministers personally received Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the airport. The delegation, including Minister of Foreign Affairs, Foreign Employment and Tourism Vijita Herat, the Minister of Health and Mass Media Nalinda Jayatissa, and Minister of Labour Anil Jayanta, Minister of Fisheries Ramalingam Chandrasekhar, Ministry of Women and Child Affairs Saroj, and Minister of Science and Technology Chiristya Abhisena. Also grateful to the ministers and dignitaries who welcomed me at the airport. Looking forward to the program in Sri Lanka, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said in a post on X. During his stay, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will also travel to Anuradhapura to the inauguration of the development projects funded by India. He will also review progress under the joint vision of fostering partnership for a shared shared future in discussion with President Dissanayake. Earlier, the Vyasa of the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center praised Prime Minister Modi's global advocacy for yoga, noting that his efforts had given it formal recognition and expanded its acceptance across Sri Lanka from spiritual circles to mainstream wellness and corporation spaces. Tens of thousands of people have taken to the streets of Spain in the largest protest against the housing speculation and to the demand access to the affordable homes. Also, organizers claim that up to 150,000 joined the protest in the Madrid, while smaller demonstrations were held across 40 cities that also around the cities. Also, protesters from the Malaga on the Costa del Sol to Vigo in the Atlantic Northwest chanted, "End of the housing racket" and "Landlords are guilty, the government is responsible." People were seen chanting these things. Also, a spokesperson from the Madrid Tenant Union called for rent strike such as those mounted recently in some Catalan coastal towns. This is the beginning of the end of the housing business, Raku said, also the beginning of a better society without landlordism and the parasitical system that devours our salaries and our resources. The union say 1.4 million Spanish households spent more than 30% of their income on housing, 2 lakh families more than 10 years ago. Also, housing has become number one social issue in Spain as a combination of property speculation and tourist apartments have driven the cost of rented housing beyond the reach of all but most wealthy. Also, official statistics suggest that there are at least 15,000 legal tourist apartments also in the Madrid, while in Barcelona the city council says that it will not renew the existing 10,000 illegal tourist apartment licenses when they expire in 2028. What was initially a problem in the areas with a high concentration of tourists such as the Balearic and the Canary Islands as well as Barcelona has become an issue across the country, with the protest in Seville, Valencia, Santiago de Compostela, Burgos and the San Sebastian among other cities, where protest ratted sets of key in what has become a symbol of discontent over the lack of affordable homes. In the Balearics, the average rent for a small apartment has risen by 40% in 5 years to about $1,400 a month, more than the average monthly salary of those working in the hospitality sector, the region's main industry. Also, the young have been hardest hit in the housing costs have soared while the salaries remain stagnant. A study published by the Spanish Youth Council showed that a lack of affordable housing meant that last year 85% of young people under the 30-year age also were still living with their parents. In Barcelona, where thousands gathered in the Plaça, protesters demanded a 50% reduction in rents, indefinite leases and an end to the property speculation. According to the Catalan housing agency, rent in Barcelona have increased by 70% in past 10 years. Salary rose by 17.5% over the same period. Also, the housing game is rigged in favor of anyone whose asset, while tax incentive encouraged them to acquire more and more property, said Jamie Palmora of the Barcelona Urban Research Institute and the author of Il de la. Also, the rich have gone richer since the financial crisis in 2018 and the COVID crisis, and that they have used this wealth to buy more and more property, constantly driving up prices and increasing inequality. The fact is that property offers a better return than other investments. We have an economic model that encourages investment in assets that don't create any value but simply use rent as a way of sucking money out of the middle classes. The solution, Palmera also says, is to tax those who own multiple properties. He cited the example of Singapore, where the state offers financial support to the first-time buyers but imposing an ascending tax regime on the second and subsequent homes. BJP MP Praveen Khandelwal criticized Zepto Chief Executive Adit Palicha's response to the Union Minister Piyush Goyal comments on the Indian startup as misplaced and illogical. Mr. Khandelwal, who is also the Secretary General of the Confederation of the All India Traders, that is CIAIT, also said that the union ministers raised a genuine concern on the focus areas of the Indian startups, and the Zepto CEO missed the essence of Mr. Goyal's comment is being defensive. Also claiming to create job and pay taxes while burning foreign capital to dismantle India's small neighborhood kirana stores is not innovation. This approach is not aligned with India's long-term strategic interest, the BJP MP said. Also, Mr. Goyal, the Union Ministry of Commerce and Industry at the Startup Mahakumbh event questioned Indian food delivery startup for turning unemployed people into cheap labor. Are we going to be happy being delivery boys and girls? Is that destiny of India? This is not a startup, this is entrepreneurship. What is the other side is doing? Robotics, machine learning, 3D manufacturing and next generation factories, Mr. Goyal said on Thursday, showing a slide titled India versus China. The startup reality check, though he admitted some criticism will come his way because of his comments, Mr. Goyal said that I have no objections. We have been willing to learn, evolve, aspire for bigger and better. We have to be bolder and we should not be shy of any competition. Also, the union minister's comment sparked a huge debate online, with some CEO finding fault with his assessment about startup in the China and India, and others supporting his view about the need for the Indian startups to take on bigger future-oriented and foundational work. Among those who pushed back at Mr. Goyal's comment was Mr. Palicha, the CEO of the grocery delivery app Zepto. Mr. Palicha highlighted what he called the company's contributions, including creating 1.5 lakh jobs, paying annual tax exceeding rupees 1,000 crore and attracting over $1 billion in the foreign direct investment, that is FDI. Mr. Khandelwal dismissed Mr. Palicha's defense as missing the essence of the union minister's message. Innovation must serve the nation, not just convenience. We need startups that solve real problems and build foundational technologies to drive India's future, the CIAIT General Secretary said. Mr. Khandelwal said that startups should contribute to India's technological self-reliance and global leadership rather than pursuing short-term commercial gains at the expense of traditional businesses. The Startup Mahakumbh event that began on the April 3rd ended today. The event was spearheaded by the India Startup Ecosystem Leader, and that was led by FICCI in collaboration with ASSOCHAM, IBCA, NASSCOM, Bootstrap Foundation and other industry stakeholders, with support from the National Startup Advisory Council, NAAC, also DP, IIT and Startup India. The death toll from the last week's massive earthquake in Myanmar has risen to 3,354, the state media said on Saturday. As the United Nations agencies and the foreign aid donors continue to ramp up their emergency relief efforts, the 7.7 magnitude earthquake has hit a wide swath of the country, causing significant damage to the 6 regions and states, including the capital, Naypyidaw. Also, the earthquake left many areas without power, telephone or cell connections and damaged roads and bridges, making the full extent of the devastation hard to access. It has also worsened an already dire humanitarian crisis triggered by the country's civil war that has internally displaced more than 3 million people and left nearly 20 million in need, according to the United Nations. Myanmar's second most powerful quake in history. Also, the military government leader, Senior General Min Aung Hlaing, also has said that the earthquake has the second most powerful in the country recorded history after a magnitude earthquake 8 that the east of Mandalay that occurred in 1912. Also, a report in the state-run Global New Light of Myanmar newspaper on Saturday said that the death toll from the March 28 disaster has reached 3,354, with 4,850 injured and 220 missing. It is also said that the rescuers had saved 653 survivors trapped under the debris. The deep sea habitat will be built in the methane-rich coal seep zones, where 6 researchers will live for a month-long mission to analyze these crystalline formations of the methane trapped in ice. Also, the Beijing officially confirmed the project on March 1, 2025, with an estimated 50 billion tons of oil equivalent energy, significantly exceeding the Gulf's 50 billion ton proven oil reserve. This massive hydrate deposits that have potential essential to reshape the global emergency and energy dynamics. Also, the deep sea stations set to begin operation by 2030 represent China's most ambitious bid to map his frontier. Also, from a military standpoint, the project extends beyond research. Its strategic maneuver in the contested region, the South China Sea, is a military hotspot. China's Nine-Dash Line, first drawn in 1947, overlaps with the territorial claims of Vietnam, the Philippines, Malaysia and Brunei. Also, Vietnam claims that the Paracel and the Spratly Islands have also clashed with the China in 1974 and 1988. The Philippines contest China's claim, particularly around the Scarborough Shoal and the parts of the Spratly Islands. In 2016, the Permanent Court of Arbitration ruled that the China's Nine-Dash Line had no legal basis, a decision Beijing rejected. Despite the ruling, Chinese vessels continued to exert pressure in these areas. The United States also play a major role in the region. It does not claim anything but sends warships through the South China Sea, calling it freedom of navigation to counter the Chinese claims. Also, for China, the South China Sea represents a vital strategic and economic lifeline. The shipping lanes within this region carry approximately US $3.4 trillion worth of goods annually, including critical resources such as oil and natural gas. Controlling these waters gives China significant leverage over the global trade and strengthens its geopolitical influence. Energy keeps a military running. Also, China, the world's biggest energy consumer, depends on coal for most of its power and oil shipped from the Middle East to fuel its forces. Coal dominates at home, but imported oil keeps ship, planes and bases operational. The reliance levies also China exposed, recurring the sequence and the securing of the supplies to the maintaining of the military readiness. The Deep Sea Research Station in the South China Sea targets gas hydrates, methane locked in the ice under the ocean floor. Methane burns cleaner than coal, producing almost about half the carbon dioxide emission, and could gradually reduce China's reliance on imported oil. This is particularly crucial for its navy, which depends on a steady fuel supply to operate. Currently, up to 85% of China's oil import pass through the Strait of Malacca, a narrow and vulnerable choke point between Malaysia and Indonesia that advisories such as China, that of the United States, could potentially block in a conflict. Securing a domestic methane supply from the South China Sea could ease this strategic vulnerability. If China succeeds, its navy could shift focus from protecting distant oil supplies route to asserting control over these contested waters. In the past, the Persian Gulf oil fueled the rise of the global powers such as the United States. Methane could do the same for China, giving its energy from its backyard. Also, the extraction is not easy. Getting methane out of the seabed takes time and precision. China's proposed station is one way to make it happen. Professor Wang, a maritime geologist at the Chinese Academy of Sciences, put it plainly that it's about guarding the ocean. We hope it will be built soon. From a military angle, this means securing resources to maintain national security. Now bringing you latest updates on today's market trends. The stock market faced a broad-based sell-off today, with major US indices experiencing significant declines as investors reacted to economic data, corporate earnings and broader macroeconomic uncertainties. The Dow Jones Industrial Average tumbled 427.51 points, that is a 0.99% decrease, signaling weakness in the blue chip stocks. The S&P 500 also saw a sharply losing of the 104.1111 points, also that is the 0.15% of decline, while the tech-heavy Nasdaq suffered the biggest hit, dropping 484.48 points, that is minus 2.61%, reflecting increased pressure on the growth and technology stock. The sharp declines in the Nasdaq suggest investors are pulling back from the riskier asset amid concerns over the interest rate inflation or potential economic slowdown. Adding to the uncertainty, the volatility Volatility Index (VIX), often referred to the fear gauge, surged by 13.41 points and indicating the heightened market anxiety. The small cap Russell 2000 index also struggled, shedding 34.19 points, that is minus 1.63%, reflecting weakness in domestic focused companies that are more sensitive to economic conditions. The downturn in the US equities may be linked to a mix of factors, including concern over the Federal Reserve policy, inflationary pressures, and global geopolitical risk. Meanwhile, the Canadian markets also face declines, with the S&P TSX Composite dropping to 86.78 points, that is minus 1.15%, and the S&P TSX 60 falling 15.89 points, that is minus 1.06%. This suggests that broader North American equities are facing similar downward pressures, possibly due to economic concerns or weaker commodity prices. However, Latin America market also painted a different picture, with Brazil's Bovespa rising 0.25%, Chile's S&P IPSA gaining 0.51%, and Mexico's S&P BMV IPC climbing 0.20%. This divergence indicates that investors in emerging markets that may be seeing relative resilience, possibly driven by local economic conditions, currency movements, or sector-specific trends. Overall, today's market performance highlights a risk-off sentiments among investors, with equities facing broad declines amid uncertainty over the macroeconomic conditions, while US and Canadian stocks suffered losses. Latin American markets showed pockets of strength, suggesting a complex global investment landscape. Investors will likely be watching upcoming economic reports, central bank decisions, and geopolitical development to gauge the directions of the markets in the coming days. Commodities saw mixed trading today, with energy prices slightly up while the metal experienced decline. WTI crude oil inched up to 0.08% to reach $66.41 per barrel, and Brent crude oil followed with a 0.20% gain to reach $69.12, indicating slight optimism in the oil markets despite broader economic uncertainty. However, the natural gas dipped 1.02% to reach $4.26, reflecting potential concerns over demand or storage levels. Precious metals struggled as gold dropped 0.38% to reach $2,915.40, and silver declined 0.64% to reach $33.13, likely influenced by the market correction or investor sentiment shifting towards other assets. Meanwhile, agricultural commodities remain stable, with soya beans ticking up 0.05% to reach $10.28. The overall commodity market performance suggests cautious investor sentiment, with energy prices holding steady but metal facing profit taking amid economic concerns. Trader will be closely watching inflation data, Federal Reserve policies, and geopolitical developments to gauge future price movements. We'll be right back after a short break. I'm Shweta Samar from New Delhi, and you're watching Millennium Daytime Bulletin.
Hello viewers, you are watching Millennium News 24. America and global villages scenes. America independence built by immigrants, manufacturers, roads, highways, educations, healthcare, IT, scientists, space, business development to all thousands of multimedia and all major social media platforms and news network in America. Millennium News 24, one of truthfully news networks in America and global news organizations. Please watch, follow and subscribe. We are in iOS and Android devices, Roku, Amazon, Apple devices, all smart TV, globally Horizon satellite, social media. Millennium News 24, Millennium TV 24. Website www.millenniumnews24.com and www.millenniumtv24.com. Thank you.
Welcome back after the break. I'm Shweta Simar from New Delhi and you're watching Millennium Daytime Bulletin. Now let's look at some sports highlights. The internet went on overdrive on Saturday when the official broadcaster showed footage of the Pan Singh and Devilika Devi Mrs. Dhoni's parents during the Chennai Super King vs Delhi Capital match in the Chennai. It was the first time Dhoni's parents dropped in to watch an IPL game here since their son's association with the CSK began in 2008. Dhoni's wife Sakshi and daughter Ziva too were in attendance during which the attending of the IPL matches that took place in also Chennai. The Dhoni's parent presence saw social media speculation whether the CSK great player would retire or not. However, the CSK coach Stephen Fleming at the post-match press conference clarified that he was not retiring. He is still going strong and I don't have even to ask him about the future of and these days. There were talks about Dhoni leading the CSK if regular skipper Ruturaj Gaikwad did not recover in time from a blows on his unprotected elbow against Rajasthan Royals in the Guwahati last Sunday. However, Gaikwad strolling out the toes rolled out such nostalgic trip back to the some glory days. Also, Gaikwad said that the toss that my elbow is good, eager to go. Also, meanwhile, standpoint and the standout spells from the spinner Vipraj Nigam and the Kuldeep Yadav strangulated Chennai Super Kings scoring rate as Delhi Capital continued their winning run in the Indian Premier League 2025 with a 24-run win at the Chepauk Stadium on Saturday. With this win, Delhi Capital is at the top of the point table with 3 wins in their 3 games. Also, on the other hand, with just 1 win and 3 losses, CSK has slid down to the 8th spot. During the run chase, the all New Zealand opening combination of the Rachin Ravindra and the Devon Conway could not stay together for long as Rachin was caught and bowled by Mukesh Kumar for just 3. CSK was 14 on 1 in 1.5 overs. In very next over, the Mitchell Stark also got the prize scalp of the skipper Ruturaj Gaikwad for 5 thanks to a fine catch by the Jake Fraser, McGurk and at the deep backward square leg, CSK was 20 on 2 in 2.3 overs. That's all for now. Thank you for tuning in. Stay with us for more updates. Log in to stay updated with the latest news on the social media platform Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and TikTok at Millennium News 24. Don't forget to check out our YouTube channel Millennium News 24. Also, you can watch us now on Android iOS devices as well as on Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV and all smart TV platforms. Enjoy entertainment and latest news with us. Download Millennium TV app, Millennium TV USA for Android and Millennium News on Google. Thank you for being part of Millennium News Channel 24.